Hey, Richard Bryce here, Tennis Hacker. If you're struggling to improve your backhand, maybe you're watching a lot of YouTube videos and you're trying to implement things, but they're just not working, or maybe you're working with a coach and you're still not able to make improvements, well, I want to help you change that in this video, because realistically, there are only two things that are going to be going on that are preventing you from improving. So I want to explain what they are and how you can start to change them so you can finally either turn your backhand into a dependable shot if that's what you're struggling with, or you can start to turn it into a weapon. I hope you find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, really appreciate it if you could do that as well. The first reason why your backhand might not be improving comes down to the way that you practice. And there can be a few things that are going on here. One of the most common ones is that you might be working or trying to work on too many things all in one go. So you might be trying to think about your split step, your unit turn, your footwork and movement to the ball, the way that you swing, meeting the ball out in front, and the contact point and the follow through. And because of the way that our bodies function, that's simply too many things for your brain to be able to think about. And instead of doing all of them really well, you end up doing none of them really well. So the first thing that you need to understand about your practice is you have to choose one or two things at most to focus on, and you have to work on them until you've improved that particular thing. So if you're an inconsistent player, you keep missing silly backhands, and you've identified that you're lifting your head or you're not watching the ball onto your strings, you have to make that your focus and priority within your training sessions, and you have to achieve enough repetitions of it until you've solved that problem. So that's the first thing that goes on with practice. And now, because of that, you need to understand that tennis shots are a sequence of events. So another thing that you're potentially doing wrong is you're focusing on something that comes too late on in that sequence of events. So you might have watched a YouTube video where they were breaking down Djokovic and they were talking about, the way his left hand overtakes his right hand at the moment of contact, and that being really important for your ability to get spin and control, which would be very correct. But potentially, the thing that's actually going on with your stroke is that you're not preparing soon enough. You're not set up in the right position, or maybe you're too close to the ball. And because of those initial things that happen within the stroke, you're now not set up in the right position, so that you've got no chance of making a good clean contact with the ball, meeting out in front and getting this stuff that comes after it. And this happens a lot of the time, even when players are working with coaches, because the contact point and the swing and all that stuff is way more glamorous than your ability to have good quality movement to the ball and setting up in the right position. So there's a very good chance that you might not be focusing on the right thing. So part one is focus on one or two things at a time. Part two is going to be make sure it's the right thing, and that normally means earlier on in the stroke rather than thinking about your follow through, which doesn't affect what happens to the ball. But then it's also about understanding the phases of learning and how to structure your practice based around the things that I've just explained. Because something else that holds players back is they've kind of got a little bit of an ego. They just want to get out there and they want to play points and they want to win points and points. And yes, you definitely want to play points as a tennis player. It's a game. That's what it's all about. But when you're trying to make technical changes, you have to go through phases of learning. And when you start to make a change on your backhand, you have to consciously think about it. And it takes energy and it takes focus, and you have to think about that one thing. And if you start playing points too soon, now your brain has to think about playing the point, and it's not able to focus on the technical change that you make, and effectively you go back to doing what you were doing before. So you need to structure your practice in such a way that you achieve enough repetitions until it turns into a habit. And that can actually be several thousand repetitions. So you need to either use a ball machine, find a practice partner, get someone feeding you, and kind of work at the right level that allows you to focus on the technical element that you're working on until you've achieved enough repetitions for it to become a habit. Then you've kind of fixed that problem, and then you move on to the next thing. So that is the first big piece of the puzzle that's going to allow you to improve your backhand. Now that you understand the importance of good quality practice structured in the right way, we need to talk about the next thing that's probably preventing you from improving your backhand, and this is potentially the biggest problem that you're facing right now, and that is that you don't possess enough skill, so eye to hand and eye to foot coordination to be able to do the things that you're trying to do. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but it's the reality of the situation. The way tennis is taught, we tend to show videos of the best players on the planet and go, look, this is how we should do it, this is how you should try and do it. But what you need to appreciate is they are the best tennis players on the planet, and that's why they can do the things that they do. So although they're biomechanically the most optimal way to hit the ball hard and still get the ball to land in, unless you have a visual system that processes in the same sort of way, unless you have that same level of movement and coordination, you aren't going to be able to hit like them. It's just simply the reality. And when you watch most lower level players, and I mean below 5.0 level, you watch them, and one of the biggest things that goes on is the preparation. They either don't split step, or when they do split step, there's this big lag period and the ball basically crosses the net before they start to react and move and set up in the right position. And as we've just talked about, unless you're set up in the right position, your chances of executing the shot go down dramatically. And then the timing is a huge piece that goes wrong for people. So you know that you've got to start your swing, you know you've got to meet your backhand out in front, especially on the one-hander. But unless you start that swing at the right time, it's not going to work. And most players' visual systems do not function in a way that allows them to have good enough timing. And then they don't have sufficient coordination to control their body and to control their body in the correct sequence to allow them to hit the stroke in the way that the pros do. So realistically, these are the things that are going to be preventing your backhand from improving. The good news though is that this is stuff that you can actually change as well. You can train and improve your visual processing so you can read where the ball's going sooner, so that you can prepare earlier, so that you can start your swing at a more optimal time, and so that you can actually track the ball and watch it onto your strings through contact. You can train and improve your coordination so that you now have the ability to more closely replicate what the pros do, and to be able to control the speed of your body movements so that you can have better timing and control over your shots. If you would like help with that side of things, that's one of the big things that I work with tennis players on. I've made a free web class that's going to teach you all about it. I'll place a link down in the description, and I'll place a link up there so you can check it out. It's going to explain how it works. It's going to take you through some vision and coordination assessments so you can start to see what's going on, and then potentially you can start to incorporate that in your game. But these are the two big things that go on that are probably preventing you from improving your backhand. You're either not practicing in the right way, or at the moment you don't possess sufficient skill to do the things that you're trying to do. If you work on practice in a more structured way and you work on improving your skill level, that is how you're really going to improve your backhand and get it to a much higher level. And obviously that's probably going to be the best way to approach improving all aspects of your game as well. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you. Hopefully it makes sense, the things that I've gone through. Focus on one thing at a time. Choose something at the start of the sequence, work on it, doing enough repetitions until it becomes a habit, and then work to improve your visual processing and your coordination. And between those two, you're going to see great improvements in your backhand.